Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to our Autonomous Finance Virtual Summit. My name is Sally Fletcher, Head of SSON Digital, and I'm delighted to be hosting this session today. So we've had three fantastic presentations so far today, and we've looked at AI on spend analytics, we looked at agentic AI specifically, and we've also been looking at the building blocks for autonomous finance. We're now zooming in on something which I know a lot of you have asked for, and that's really top tips for successful AI implementations. What's going to make it work? What's going to make the difference between a project that succeeds and one that's relegated after the first 12 months? So we've got Zach here. Zach's a fantastic speaker. He's spoken for us many times before, and I've always been impressed by the clarity and practical nature of his presentations. So we've been really pleased that he's come back and given the time to present to us today, but don't ask him any difficult questions because he's not feeling 100%. Before I hand over to Zach, a few notices on the console that we see before you. You do have those icons at the bottom. You've got the chat and the Q&A. Please do take the time to post your questions there. We'll answer as many as possible at the end of the session. And if we don't get to all of them, I'll download and send them on to Zach. So make sure to use this time. We also have our emojis. It's incredibly difficult presenting online. We can't see you, we can't hear you, but we love to know you're out there. So please do give us a thumbs up if you agree with the session and the presentation that Zach will be sharing. There's also our resource center. So as you will have seen from the previous presentations, the resource center has resources related to the topic of the session. We've got in here a link to our AP Automation Summit where Rossum will also be speaking. As well as a link to the slides. So don't worry too much about kind of taking screenshots or notes, sit back and relax. A copy of the slides is available in the Resource Center under the Documents tab. And finally, there is Rossum's report on document automation trends for 2025. So that's a really good companion piece to this presentation. So who is our speaker for today? So we have here Zach Herman-Lowe. Zach is a Senior VP of Revenue at Rossum. Rossum AI is an AI-first cloud-native intelligent document processing platform. Zach here has experience over 12 years of working across a variety of sectors in the SaaS space, after most recently having worked at SAP through an acquisition of his former company, the Hut Group. He has fantastic insight into all things AI and IDP, so it's great to have him here presenting with us. I'm going to hand over to you, Zach, to lead us in our presentation.
Thanks, Sally. Thank you for the very nice introduction, and hopefully people did take note on the not too many difficult questions, but of course there is always time for those to come at the end. I think I do have one of my colleagues, Rami. He will be in the chat, so if there are any questions that he can answer, he will do. Otherwise, Sally and I can make sure that we have some time at the end. I'm coming at this today, hopefully just trying to give people some insight and advice. I think the theme of what we're speaking around is autonomous finance. And for those that don't know Rossum, we play within this space called IDP, so intelligent document processing. And we're founded from an AI type business. So we're an AI at heart organization founded just over 8 years ago. So really in the beginning of the AI era, if you like. Today is really just me trying to enable people to have a bit more of a clarity around the things to consider when going into an AI-led implementation, what the impacts to your teams are and everything else in between. I've got some insight from our customers. I've got some insight from experience that we've got from running processes, from having successful implementations, and also lessons, of course, from not so successful implementations as well. So that's the plan for today. And I wanted to kick it off just a little bit by talking around the reason why people want to consider AI or people want to move to autonomous finance. And typically when people come to Rossum, they are looking to achieve 1, 2, or 3 of these things. And obviously the best customers are trying to achieve all 3 of them. So number 1, they're looking to gain operational efficiency. That means, can I do more with less? Can I spend my money or can I use my team to better effect? Can I do more with my team? Can I increase my output with what I'm trying to achieve today? Number 2, cost efficiency. In some instances, perhaps teams are overburdened, they need to reduce their team size, but a lot more commonly, it's around cash flow. How do I make my money work harder? How do I do more with what I currently have today? And then the third one is really just around introducing AI into my business. I'm sure for many people that are on the call today, one of the key facets, and for many of our customers over the last couple of years, it's just been, look, we know we need to use AI, but we don't really know how. So really what I'm here to do today is to help all of the people that are on this call today really go through what that shift is in terms of the thought process and pattern that will enable you to think about how do I start to implement this within my organization, but through the eyes of Rossum, because that's what I know best. As we said, Rossum, we released a report earlier on this year. Hopefully everybody here agrees, right? It's efficiency, cost reduction, insights. There's many, many different reasons why people are looking for it. And I just thought for 1 second, I'll give you some insight into why I believe that I'm well placed to also give you some insight and advice into this. So Rossum works with over 350 organizations, many of them large businesses that you see on here. I mentioned that we're AI first. And my role here at Rossum is I oversee all of our existing customer base. So everyone that's gone through one of these implementations or on that journey to autonomous finance, as well as all of our new business customers and our partners as well across both implementation and technology partners. So I really see the full spectrum. So everything that you're going to hear today is coming from my view of really understanding that kind of full spectrum of people that are exploring it, people that are doing it, people that have done it, and everybody else in between. The first thing that people think about when they want to get into autonomous finance, they want to introduce AI is number one, where do I start? And for me, the first thing that I think about, and when people ask me this question is, look, there's not a single place to start. There is typically three things that we should be thinking about. Surprisingly, these are the three must-knows for a successful AI implementation. We need to focus on the people, we need to focus on the process, and then we need to focus on the technology. And I'm going to break all three of these down for you today from the eyes of both our customers as well as Rossum to hopefully help you to start to ideate if you're on that journey to autonomous finance today. Let's start with the people. Number one, what do we mean by people? For many organizations, for many of the people on the call today, you're going to be thinking, oh, well, I think of autonomous finance and I think about the people that are affected. And it's typically focused on the finance team, right? Many people just say it's going to be the AP team, the AR team, it could be the CFO, the finance director. But actually, there's a lot more people involved when going through an autonomous finance or AI implementation journey. You have to consider your internal teams. Okay, what about your data governance team? What about IT? What about legal? What about your treasury team? All of those different things which come into account that also really should be considered. So one thing that I always recommend is making sure that you've considered the wider team of around people. It's also important when you're going on this journey to be considerate of your suppliers and vendors. Any change, any difference, any communication needs to happen should always be focused around all of the people that exists, including also your technology partners. And we'll come on to talk a little bit more about that today. I just want to spend a second and talk around finance teams before AI. This is one of the biggest differences that we see. And for many people on the call today, I've said before AI and I've said circa 2020. For some of you, you may be saying, hey, look, I've got some of these and we're in 2025, Zach. And that's not a surprise. You're not alone. I can absolutely promise you. But if we think about what the impact of a lot of the kind of non-AI capability, the manual sort of processing, it really is impacting those businesses, right? Those finance teams are finding themselves burdened with repetitive tasks. Those tasks often lead to error. They have high turnover and attrition. And certainly from our side, we see a ton of organizations that have come to us because their teams are getting smaller just through to natural attrition. They're stuck with outdated technologies. That report that I shared earlier talks heavily around how Excel is still one of the foundational technologies that exists in many finance departments. And they're suffering on the other side of this, right? Communication, I'm sure for many people on the call today, if somebody goes on holiday and you want to know how we communicated something back with a supplier or we're mid dispute with a vendor, that's just stuck in somebody's Outlook and it's going here and it's going there, right? It is a painful process for people to go through. And actually, some people actually took the opportunity to say, look, we don't want to deal with this anymore. We outsourced it. We're going to send it somewhere else. We're going to let somebody else deal with that problem. And all of these things, I say circa 2020, they're still happening today. The thing that we really see, and this is from our customer experience, is as AI is starting to become introduced into organizations, The roles within finance are starting to really become reimagined, right? We understand that for many people, and some people on today's call, and some of your teams on today's call, when they hear the word AI, they immediately kind of go to, well, I might lose my job. What does it mean for me? And all of those different things. And actually, I'm here to say, look, there's some real fantastic upside to this. Number one, enabling those AP teams for Rossum, as we do IDP and its accounts payable automation and everything else in between, enabling them to do more, right? Focusing on those value added tasks. It increased trust within the organization. It means that you can rely on the data that's coming in and out of the organization. You can make better buying decisions with the different level and the higher quality of insights that are being leveraged from AI technologies. It also means, and this is a unique one for me, is teams are moving away from being people that are just defining and doing things within systems to become monitors of systems, to maintain systems, to be able to focus on increasing performance of systems outside of just working in those systems. And then, of course, what it also means is they get to spend more time with suppliers. And again, we'll talk about what the impact of that is as we continue to go down into today's session. The outcome from a team perspective, right, is we get more productive, we get more efficient, we're reliable, we're scalable, we're all the things that we see here on screen, right? But realistically, what I think the role of AI and autonomous finance is enabling finance departments and teams to do is to be seen as a value-added resource within the organization, right? You're delivering insights, you're creating better operational rigor, you're renegotiating pieces, you're value creating within the organization, as well as also improving the lives of the people that exist within your team. People are excited. We have some customers that have renamed roles from accounts payable clerks to AI assistants and all of those different things that come into their own. So really enabling that process around people to focus on, right, what do we do and where do we want to be taking the people within my organization? Consideration number one. Consideration number two. Probably the biggest thing when people are considering autonomous finance is process. The most dangerous quote in the English language is we've always done it this way. I hear it time and time again, right? As we start to get into these projects, we have CFOs that kick something off and say that we want to engage this and we want to do this and we've got this vision. But actually, there is always people that don't quite understand the vision. We haven't quite got there yet. And we've always stuck in this process of we've always done it this way. Now, what that means and what that ultimately exists for businesses is they continue to rely on technologies which are outdated. It means that the automation is low. It means that they're focused on different types of capabilities. They're focused on different types of technologies and spending time and wasting time within the organization. And that resistance to change is always going to be the barrier to really focusing on autonomous finance. So when we think about process, and we're going to get into reviewing a process from the customer's perspective, many organizations, when they think about autonomous finance or they think about intelligent document processing, my opinion from being on the other side of these journeys is many of them are focusing on the wrong thing. Now, this is going to be a big debate, and I would welcome conversation. I would welcome people to connect with me directly, and I'll have this debate with you. So many organizations focus on automation rate as being the answer. Right? I can confirm there is mathematical statistics that we have on our side. Automation rate simply is not the answer. What we should be focusing on is efficiency metrics such as documents per person, value per person, documents per person per hour. That enables us to really drive metrics which focus on the outcome of the process rather than the input of what we're trying to achieve. As an organization focused on autonomous finance, one of the biggest barriers that we see when going into running a review of technologies or the way that you're doing things is it's very easy to get pigeonholed looking at the exceptions, right? And they're exceptions for a reason. They're called exceptions for a reason. What we recommend and the way that Rossum really likes to work with our customers is let's focus on what truly matters. The Pareto law of 20% of vendors account for 80% of your revenue typically exists across most organizations, and that should also be where we're looking to bite off. What we then do is we iterate over time and really acknowledge those exceptions and identify and create that rule there. But far too much time can often be spent on what those exceptions are, rather than as we go into reviewing a process, looking at, okay, what does good look like for the outcome that we're looking to do? And when we think about outcomes, that's the really important part. So many people that come to Rossum haven't thought about what the outcome is. They've thought about, hey, I want to improve automation. I want to be autonomous. I want agentic AI. I want to introduce AI. But when I ask why, people haven't quite figured out why. They say, oh, well, we want to just do more with less. We want to do all of these different things. But there should always be a real focus on what the strategic value is for your business, because that allows you to work towards an end state and a reasoning behind the process that you're reviewing yourself. We focus on things like supplier satisfaction, operational health, working capital efficiency, all of those good things that really drive value back to your business. And there's a million other things that work within the interim as well. I want to give you an example of a customer that came to us probably 8 or so months ago. I gave him a call, a very CFO of a food delivery business, actually. And I said, look, I just want to know, you came to us and you had everything pretty much mapped out. What were the processes and what were the steps that you went through to enable both the vendor, so Rossum, to have a really succinct process and do the right things? But more importantly, what did you do internally to make sure that your business was ready for change? Number one, acknowledge the need for change, right? And we talked about the people, we talked about engaging those people. If you haven't got the right people acknowledging the fact that something needs to change, you're always going to be dragged down when trying to go through a journey of implementing AI or autonomous finance. Acknowledging is really, really key. Then what we need to do is we need to focus on speaking to the people. So we've already done that. We've understood the people. We've looked at what we're going to focus on. What do they like? What do they dislike? What gives them the Sunday scaries? What gets them out of bed in the morning? What stops them sleeping at night? That really gives you a holistic view of everything that's going on from a people perspective. Then we recommend, of course, speaking to your suppliers and your vendors. What could be improved? Where do they see problems? Who are your biggest vendors? Are you asking them, if I change this, what would this mean for you? We're contemplating this. How do you think that will impact you? Right? It's really important to work with your vendors and suppliers to enhance that collaboration early on in this process. And then what we always recommend, and Rossum has a really exciting way of doing this, and we often go and meet our customers, we map the current process. And we look at a couple of different things: most time-consuming tasks, where do we find errors? And then what are the things that we start to highlight out the back of that? I mean, this instance here, we were talking around the piece they had was there were 7 different touches of an invoice from income through to being paid in their ERP. 7 touches. Okay. And that really highlighted, okay, how can we focus on where those efficiencies are? And what you'll see is I put in here, identify the opportunities. When you map a process, it's very easy to say that's a problem here or that's a problem here. But what I recommend everybody to do is focus on them becoming opportunities for improvement. Okay, how do I improve the lives of the teams that I have? How do I improve the relationship that I have with IT today? How do I improve my cash flow? How do I improve the time that people are spent doing this? Or how do I make the most out of a very skilled member of staff that is currently doing something which ideally they would spend less time doing? Then we focus on redesigning that workflow. Okay, we redesign what that needs to look like, who's involved, why they're involved, what it means for those people, what they will then need to do instead. Big thing here is always get that group buy-in. Always make sure everybody is aligned to this. And this is before you come to someone like a Rossum or another vendor, whatever else may exist, because then it enables you to work off of the right structure and the right strategy moving forward. The big thing for me as well is stakeholder collaboration. It's really important. And this comes back to the point that I said earlier on, which was around aligning on the outcome of what you're looking to achieve. So if we focus just on, hey, look, we want to improve our process, we want to do this or this because of this, it's one thing. But if you have clearly defined outcomes, we're going to do this and it is going to achieve A, B, and C. It enables you to get that business level buy-in, that stakeholder collaboration and buy-in that really focuses on what success looks like rather than spending time on everything that's going in. It gives you more freedom. It allows you to really explore the world of really doing something impactful within the organization. And then the final piece for me is find the ideal vendor for you. Everybody, and I'll talk about this as we get into technology, there are so many vendors in every single part of the finance world. Not every single vendor is right for one company to another company to another company. It's really about finding the vendor that's right for you. And hopefully I'll give you some insight from a vendor in terms of how I would love our customers to have found us more than we find them. There's a download here for an RFP template if you like it. Of course, do with that what you like. So we have spoken to our people. We've got our people aligned. Everybody's saying, yep, we're going to do that. We've planned it. We've got everything now. We know what our process looks like. We know what our workflow looks like. We're ready to go. But what do I do now? I've got to go and find the technology, which is arguably the easy part. Most people think. I can tell you from experience, sitting on the other side of the fence from the technology side, it's not quite as easy as many people think. If you just search AI, invoice, accounts payable, finance automation, autonomous automation, you are going to be met with a world of different things. You're going to be met with all of these different words. This was just a first page of Google, just having a look at things that came up, right? What you need to also focus on is then how do I identify the right vendor or for me? What I want to do is I want to give you a bit of a tip. All right, number one, there's two sides to identifying the right vendor. There's the research that you do. We know that most buyers now in the finance function will always do their research. And I think Gartner said it was 75, so like 3/4 of all people have done the majority of their vendor assessment well in advance of even speaking to a technology vendor. They'd actually rather not speak to a salesperson by the sounds of things. But what I want to do is help you to do, how do I go and do that research before I go in? And then when I speak to a vendor, what should I be speaking to that vendor about? So, number one, 4 areas for me. Overlap. Does that technology vendor currently work or have overlap with what I'm trying to achieve? What's the size of my business? What industry am I in? What technologies do I already work with? Do I have an SAP system? Do I have Cooper? Do I have NetSuite? Do I have all of those different things? Do they work with those systems already? Because then I can be sure there's some overlap. Do I know that they've similar industries? Do I know they work in the UK as well as Ireland or America and all of those other things that could also come into account? The second part is trust. Do I trust them? Right? As you go through Google, I'm sure everybody here has experienced a wide variety of different online, different portals and people and opinions and everything else in between. It's often very murky in terms of how do we trust them, right? Rely on reviews. Take a look at the G2s, take a look at Gartner, look at those case studies. Do I know anybody that's currently working with them? This is not an in and out decision, right? I talk about the finance function as the beating heart of a business. If we're going to impact the finance team, if we're going to impact the line of revenue and monetary value that's going in and out of an organization, this is not something that should be taken lightly. We should really focus on, do I trust the people that I'm working with? Number one, number two, three, geez, clarity, right? It's always good to know what you're trying to achieve, right? There are many tools that they can do everything, they can do some of it, and you need to decide what type of tool you're also looking for. For many customers, they come to us because they want data extraction. Other customers come to us because they want full end-to-end automation. There's a whole world of different things that customers come to us about. And that's a really big thing for people to always consider before they start going in and speaking to vendors is, what am I looking for from the vendor that I'm about to engage with? And then number one, how does this then play into my overarching strategy? Okay. How will I approach this internally? How will I approach it with IT? How am I going to ensure that this vendor is going to get me to where I want to get to? Do they have the people? Do they have the resources? Do they have the information required for me to feel comfortable? They're going to work towards the strategy side of things. It would also be pretty unfair of me to not talk about AI. At an AI conference, autonomous finance conference, I feel it would be very unjust of me. And I think AI is a bit of a crazy buzzword at the moment. Everyone that opens up a news website, a newspaper on a daily basis, you are going to see something about AI. Now, if I was to ask my grandparents what AI is, they would just think it is a singular thing. And for many people, they still do. Right? And then what I want to do is I want to give you some tips and tricks when thinking about AI, because many of the customers that come to us still don't quite understand the questions to be asking or the things to think about when it comes to AI, specifically for finance, because I think it's actually even more important when it comes to finance. Number one, there are private clouds and there are public clouds. So you need to be considering, where do I want my data? Do I want my data to be part of a much wider data set that is being accessed or also being informed for public hyperscalers, your Amazons, your Microsofts, your chat GPTs of the world? Or would I prefer my data to be more segregated? Would I want it to be my data and maintained within my organization? Again, those questions are really important and often forgotten about until the last minute when the security team get involved and everybody else in between. How safe is the AI itself? We've all seen the differences around the fake news and everything else that comes into its own. AI for finance also has the same problems, right? There is a thing such as called hallucinations, which is where AI wants to find a number. The number itself doesn't exist on the page, but because AI has been told to find the number, it will find it. It may not be invoice date, it may just be due date instead. It may take a variety of different things because it wants to provide you an answer because that's what it's required. Now, that's okay for a chat GPT or when you're asking it what the football score is here or something like that. But when it comes to pushing really important financial information to be paid downstream, you really want to make sure that there is no hallucinations because that could be the thing that costs a lot of money. The next one is probably one of the interesting ones is confidence. How can I be confident in the AI? What is the feedback loop that I can get from the AI? Does it just give me an answer? Or does it provide me with further information like confidence scores to say, I am 99% confidence, I'm 80% confidence? And then can I play with that? Many of our customers at Rossum, they play with confidence scores in certain areas where they know that actually bill to address, I'm okay with that being less confident, but I know ship to address needs to be more confident. I know total amount needs to be more confident. So playing around with those and getting more used to AI as we start to move into autonomous finance is really important for many, many people. So as you're reviewing AI, spend some time and think about what the AI is also allowing you to do in order to get confident with it. Does the AI have experience in finance? Right, this sounds obvious, right? You'd hope so, right? Has it dealt with invoices? Has it dealt with sales orders, POs, credit notes, logistics documentation? Has it done all of these things before? And can I prove it? I highly, highly, highly recommend if you're going to market or you're looking at a vendor, ask them to test it. Test some samples, send some documents, do all of those things in between to give you the thing that we said before, which is the confidence in the technology itself. And then finally, does it have use cases? Right? What am I trying to achieve with the AI? AI is incredibly powerful now. I can create a picture of a dog jumping over a fire in 5 seconds. But what do I want that AI to do for me? Do I want it to extract data? Do I want it to be able to communicate with my suppliers automatically? Do I want it to infer additional data like GL codes? Do I want the AI to be able to take and extract further information? Do I want it to match information against my downstream systems? Do I want it to use fuzzy information? All of the good things there. And then understand, okay, what is the application behind what that AI can do for me? And it all comes out back into the process and what I'm trying to achieve. So, in conclusion, hopefully everybody's taken something away today. The big thing that I would always say is that not every vendor is right for you. So for many of you on the call today, you could be speaking to two different vendors and they could both be right for you. It's really important as you go through your process and you look at the people that you have, you look at the process that you want to create, and you look at the technology that you need, you acknowledge that you need to find the right vendor for what you're trying to achieve. Identify your needs. Make sure they have the right level of compatibility. I also focus on cultural fit. It's really important in these processes to work with teams and people. This is not a one and done scenario. I test it, usability, accuracy. How does it map to my process? What does the technology look like? And then obviously we always need to take into account cost. And also I would recommend also the final one for me, and this kind of comes for everybody that wants to make the download of the slides, scalability and future proofing. AI is moving so quickly today. What does the future look like for this business? Where do I want to take my business? How far in advance can I see myself working with this organization? Three things, if we go back to the beginning: talent, people, making sure that we equip the team with the right skills, the right knowledge. We allow them to ask the right questions. We enable them to get comfortable before we're going into any single project. Mapping out your workflow for the efficiency that you're looking to gather. And then finally, selecting the technology that is going to be right for you as an organization. It may not be right for everyone else that works around different organizations and everything else in between. And I can see there's quite a few questions in the chat. So I will hand
Yes.
over to Sally to see if there are any questions I can help to answer.
Yes, thank you so much, Zach. That was fantastic. I know that we haven't got long, but I would love to just take a couple of those questions, if that works for you. The first questions come from, let me just scroll back. Questions come from Christoph. And Christoph's saying, from his opinion, a good question to the CEO is to ask what happens if you don't do anything and continue as you are. His question is also, is Rossum mapping the process internally or using external help such as process mining?
So what we do, I would say 90% of our customers, everything is internal. Some of our customers connect us to process mining technologies, your Salonis's, your UiPaths of the world, but the majority of our customers are doing all of that within the Rossum solution.
Fantastic. That's really good. And we also, Joy's made a couple of really good comments on here, and is asking, have you ever heard people say, you mentioned we've always done it this way is really the most dangerous question, and how you reply to that. She's suggesting you say, how is that working out for you?
Yeah.
But any kind of ways to counteract that real, I suppose, just shuttered way of thinking.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult, and I think it's probably very different depending on who you are. So if you're a vendor, I'm not sure that answer, Joy, would go down too well. But what I would do from our side, and then obviously internally, it's really about explaining and understanding what their fear is, right? It's usually fear that stops people wanting to do it, right? It's inertia. I would spend some time focused on creating that feedback loop, spending time understanding what it is that they're concerned about. How do we make sure that collaboration, and we've communicated what the outcome of the project is going to be, and then spend some time in that part. But obviously we hear that a lot, right? We've always done it like this. It needs to be done this way. And actually, for many people, it's for want of a terrible comment, but it was I think it was Henry Ford that said, if I did what people wanted, we would have just had faster horses, right? And I think that's probably the big thing that we think about there.
Yeah, 100%. The last question that I'll take is just from Simajit. He's saying that, do you improve the process before you automate or automate before you improve the process? Kind of what's your perspective on that?
So, and it comes back a little bit to one of the slides that I talked earlier, where people come to us and they say, we just want to automate as much as possible. It's really, and it's a great point raised by whoever that was. I've forgotten your name. Apologies, but it's actually really valuable, right? Getting the basics right, doing the right things, and then trusting yourself to automate is absolutely the right thing. So we focus on getting the process right, handling documents in the right way, the right shape, the right form, following a business's standard operating procedures to ensure that you are comfortable automating. The biggest challenge that you get is you've worked on a project, you've set everything up, you've then gone to full automation, and it's caused more problems than it has good, right? Everybody that's on today's call and listens to this and is going on this autonomous finance journey, the worst thing anybody wants is to go and make a big mistake that then enables them to have to come back and stop doing what they were doing before. So it really is step by step and moving and improving that process.
Yeah, understood. Sadly, that's all we've got time for. So I'm going to have to wrap it up there. But thank you so much to Zach for delivering such a fantastic presentation. And thank you to everyone that attended today's event. We will be reconvening tomorrow at 9 a.m. EST, so 2 p.m. GMT. And we'll be looking at the human in the loop as our next session. We're going to be examining how you get your employees ready for the age of AI. I'll be joined by Ansgar Thiessen. He's a global head of operational excellence at Swiss Re. And Rob Purty, who is the head of digital transformation for Takeda Business Solutions. After that, we'll be getting a case study from Vinny Koltor, the head of Center of Excellence and Virtual Delivery Center at DHL Global Forwarding, who also a customer of Rossum. So we'll be looking forward to hearing how Vinny is transforming his IDP and what they've been doing in moving from automation to AI. And finally, we'll be looking at fraud. So we've got a session on preventing and detecting AP fraud in an omni-channel, hybrid and digital environment. So I'm looking forward to reconnecting tomorrow. Thank you once again to Zach and to everyone that attended today.
Thanks, everyone.